Cheers, Nigel. Hey, everybody. Welcome to my session on accelerating Intune admin tasks with PowerShell. My name is James Graham, and I'm field CTO for a company called Remo Free that I'm not allowed to say or talk about because this is a community session. So I didn't say that. I wanted to do a session on, like, for example, we do a lot of SCCM to Intune journeys for customers, and our focus is all around the Windows applications and getting those applications into Intune. And there's always some tasks that fall outside of that application migration. And so I talk to customers a lot around how they can use things like PowerShell to accelerate and automate some of those tasks. So I figured I'd just put together a few of those things, what I help customers with, what it might be interesting to share with you guys. Any Intune admins in the house? Quite a few hands up, so hopefully you'll learn something new or just reaffirm what you know, but feel free to challenge me and ask questions or say how I could do things better, because I'm always learning. And to be honest, I'm not an Intune admin. I don't do this as my day job. This is just a bit of fun that I like to do to help customers and add a bit of value to what we do for them. So hopefully it'll be helpful. Also, we know that Intune Copilot is just around the corner as well. Public preview 1st of April. And I'm a bit of a cheapskate. So I was like, well, you know, why not look at how we can build our own Intune Copilot as well? So I will use a bit of time to talk about how you can do that as well with things like Power Automate and Copilot Studio as well to do that. So without further ado, so agenda, I'll just do conscious of time, so I did sort of plan this actually originally as an hour session with 45 minutes of content and 15 minutes of questions, but I'm going to have to convert quickly to 45 minutes of content somehow. So I'll just quickly cover off when we talk about cloud native Windows endpoint, what that is. So a bit of background as well. I am ex-Microsoft, so I worked at Microsoft for 5.5 years before joining the company where I'm at now, where I did a lot of stuff around Intune for customers, but also for UK partners as well. So I'll just share a bit of that knowledge around cloud native, talk very quickly about like what tools are available in community that I've seen, and anyone feel free to share what stuff they've seen as well, particularly around like folks in the community have done a lot of work around Intune PowerShell and creating some stuff ready to go that's available in GitHub. So I'll just highlight some of the ones that are really cool. And then I will talk about those Intune PowerShell use cases and do some demos for you. Okay, so what is cloud native Windows endpoint? So essentially across 5 key areas when we talk about that endpoint and that end user experience. And we start with the devices. So these days that can be physical, can be virtual. We have options with virtual, AVD, for example, Cloud PC, Windows 365, physical devices, and of course, the OS that sits on top, Windows 10, and a lot of customers are now moving to Windows 11, slowly getting there. And then, of course, we have the management plane, and traditionally, many customers have used SCCM, Config Manager, to manage their applications and devices, and then layering security tools on top of that as well. And these days, a lot of customers are looking at Microsoft for that security landscape. And of course, the apps exist on top of that layer as well. So all end users need apps, and apps are pretty much the lifeblood of organizations. But what we're seeing is a lot of customers start to move away from Config Manager into Intune. Co-management's been around for a while now, and slowly customers have moved all those levers over. And one thing I always see as sort of holding customers back, keeping them stuck in this co-managed state is the applications. And getting those applications from SCCM into Intune is always a challenge for customers. And then presenting those applications in by different options. So we have Company Portal for Intune customers. We have Winget repositories now available as well through WPM. And of course, with Intune Suite, we have Enterprise App Management for those third-party applications and third-party app patching, which is what sort of Patch My PC has been providing as well for many customers. And then, of course, identity is a key part of that as well, moving from AD to hybrid to fully cloud-native Entra ID, and then, of course, cloud security as well. But that also needs to all be kept up to date as well. So servicing needs to be considered. We've got Windows Auto Patch now. We've got great analytics tools through Microsoft. And yeah, leveraging sort of deployment rings to keep those Windows devices up to date. But when we talk about what is the cloud native endpoint, we're talking very much around native, Entra, ID join, Intune enrolled, so really no sort of on-prem sort of footprint in terms of application management, delivery, and user identity as well. So many customers are on that journey. You guys on that journey or there pretty much? So yeah, lots of nods of heads, so it's all relevant to folks. So really, the point is, like, Intune is really important these days. If I go back 5 years' time, it was a really, really hard conversation when it came to Intune and Windows devices. But these days, more and more customers using it, and Microsoft have done a lot to expand its footprint with settings catalog now these days. When you compare that to GPOs, it's getting closer and closer all the time. So therefore, customers are running out of excuses not to use it really. So, with Intune, there comes a lot of activities that admins need to do. And what I've found is in Intune, it can be quite hard to scale those activities. And I'll show you a few examples of that. And then as a result of that, then what that has done is built up a community of folks trying to help Intune admins accelerate or remove some of that friction around doing these tasks. And I listed a few here. So Andrew Taylor, our own sort of UK guy, MVP, I'm not sure if he's here today, but he has got some great tools out there. So he's got like a really good Intune backup tool as well, which is free. He's also got some other paid for stuff as well to accelerate that time to deploying Intune tenants. There's another guy, Stefan van Rouge, does some exciting things around Win32 applications and some other stuff. And of course, most folks will know the MS Endpoint Manager community group. They've got a bunch of stuff as well. But the best way to find stuff that I see, if I go to just to GitHub, you can go to the main landing page, and if you do a search on Intune, you'll see a bunch of repositories that folks have built, and some of these can be really helpful and speed up your time. So feel free to sort of have a look there. Like Aaron Parker does some great stuff with third-party app patching as well, and got some great script tools. You've got Andrew Taylor stuff on here. You've even got the Microsoft official sort of PowerShell Intune samples as well, which is pretty cool. A good friend of mine used to keep those up to date. So that's sort of like my go-to place for getting sort of ready-made sort of scripting, and where folks have put in that effort up front. But also, I like to do a lot of things myself, and to help me, I use this tool called Graph X-Ray. So anyone heard of Graph X-Ray? One nod, two nods, a couple of shaking of heads. Okay, excellent.
Normally I use Andrew Taylor's app, one of the PowerShell script to deploy the app.
Fantastic, yeah, that's it. So let's say if you want to build your own and you want to learn yourself. So Graph X-Ray is a fantastic Edge extension that you can just get off the internet. So Graph X-Ray, stick that into your favorite search browser, and it will prompt you to install the Edge extension. So what that does, so if I just go to my Intune homepage here, and I go to More Tools and Developer Tools. So when you've got Graph X-Ray installed, when you click on the plus icon, you see Graph X-Ray is this additional dev tool in your Edge session. So when you click on that, opens a side window. So what it's going to do, every single action you do now that requires a graph call, so that could be in Entra, in Intune as we are now, that's basically going to track what that graph call is. So you can select what language you want that to appear in. So let's stick with PowerShell, as this is what the session is around. And let's start doing some stuff, right? So if I go into devices, and let's start creating maybe a configuration profile, for example. Let's create a new policy. I'll do something as very quick as possible. Windows, let's just do a template quick. So BIOS configurations, because it's there on the list. Give it a name. Oh, damn, I probably picked the wrong one. Let's just do, I haven't got a configuration file, damn it. So anyway, you get the point. So let me just kill that. But then what you look on the right-hand side is, you can see both the Graph API call that was made, but also the PowerShell script or syntax that was used to make that call. So let's say you were looking to, say, build out a Intune environment in, for example, in dev or pre-prod or something like that. Let's say you're on that journey to Intune and you create this whole environment. You go through this process of clicking on the buttons and maybe following Microsoft's best practice policy around building cloud native Windows endpoints. So for example, if you went to whoops. Not the one. Basically, there's a tutorial on the Microsoft Docs around setting up that sort of Microsoft best practice for Windows endpoint management via Intune. So what is this? It's a basically step-by-step guide to building your first autopilot deployment profile, enrollment status page profile, all of the recommended Intune configuration policies to deploy. So you go through all of that pain in maybe pre-prod or demo environment, and then when it comes to production, you've got to do it all over again, and that is a pain in the backside. So you could have used some tool to do back up that and restore it to a new environment. Any partners in the house? Any partner guys? So a couple of partners. So you may, when you deploy to new customers, you may want a scripted deployment, right? So it saves your guys time. So using Graph X-Ray, you can capture all of those activities and you can save it as a PowerShell script, and then simply you're able to then deploy that into a new environment. So what I'm not going to do is walk you through all of the different scripts and things like that, but essentially I'll show you how easy it is when you've gone through that work. So I'm just going to connect to a sort of new tenant that I've created. So this is a pretty much an empty tenant that I created earlier. So you'll see there's pretty much just the default configuration profiles there. If I go into enrollment, there is some default Windows autopilot profile, so on and so forth, right? So it's pretty much there, empty, ready to go. And let's say I've gone through the work and I just want to populate it now with the scripts that I've sort of copied and filled out. So if I just connect to Graph and authenticate. And now I just need to remember which tenant it was. Let me quickly remind myself. 977. So I'm connected now to Graph. I've given myself a bunch of permissions that would enable me to create application objects, create device configurations, and all that sort of stuff. So now I can quickly sort of burn through a bunch of policies. So I'll just come back to this stuff. This is some stuff I'll come back to in a minute. But if I scroll down to this section here, where we can populate Intune with Microsoft best practice settings. So what I've got already is I've already built the hash tables based on stuff I went through earlier, right? So we can see here, this one is to create a new Windows Autopilot devices group, and this will have the dynamic membership rule as well. So the ZTID flag to enable this group to auto-populate with the Autopilot devices. Created some ESP policy page as well, so you can see the different settings that I've set here based on Microsoft recommended best practice. Assigning that ESP page to that group for the Windows Autopilot devices, and then also deploying Autopilot profile, so on and so forth. We've also additional configuration policy settings. So, none of this I've written myself. I've pretty much taken that output from Graph X-Ray and basically just captured it. And now I have a bunch of stuff I can deploy, including security baselines as well. So all I need to do is I'm authenticated, and I just need to drag pretty much all the way down and run this, and this is where everything goes wrong. So that was it. It was done. So what have I done? So let me go back to Intune. So what I've got now is, if I go to configuration policies, I will see that there is a Autopilot optimal M365 settings there with all of the stuff I defined. If I go into Windows Autopilot, I've got a Windows Autopilot deployment profile, so cloud native Windows endpoint. I've got some ESP settings I defined as well, which I really intuitively called 1. Actually, no, that's priority 1, so ESP settings is what I call it. But you can see that took like a second or so to deploy all those policies. So that is my first accelerating Intune admin tasks thing ticked off. So that's probably my least impressive, because so that's that scenario of building out that Intune tenant. But what other scenarios do I have? So we've covered off the build out the Intune tenant one, and these are sort of things you can fill out. So compliance policies, security baselines, conditional access policies, all of those things you can do. So it's almost like have Graph X-Ray look over your shoulder, enable you to build those repeatable scripts. On the other side is around applications. So some of the things that we do, so we can help get those applications into Intune, but we don't do the assignment. Right, so this is always things that I come from customers a lot. Like I've just put 1,000 applications in Intune, and now I need to assign those. And some of those are going to multiple groups of users, multiple business units. Some of them go to everybody as a core applications. Some of them are available. Some of them are required. Some of them go to finance. Some of them go to HR. Some of them go to marketing. And when you go into Intune, right, and you assign applications, it is not an intuitive process if time is a factor. So if I just go to my applications, and let's say I wanted to assign this application, you can see that I can't select multiple. There's no way to select multiple apps. So if I had a collection of apps, I can't just select 20 apps and assign them to a group. I have to do one at a time. And it's not one click, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. It's multiple clicks, and you have to do that for every single application, and you probably have to revisit that. So for me, that is like a pain in the backside. And it's a pain in the backside to customers, particularly if they've just done that lift and shift from SCCM to Intune, for example, and you've got thousands of applications that need assigning. So how do we accelerate this task and remove that pain? So again, we can use Graph X-ray as the starting point to help us understand what are those commands that trigger the application assignment in Intune. I will just call out quickly that everything in Graph X-ray is using the Graph Beta calls. So when you do this, actually I am making this script available so anyone can sort of download it after this session and take it and use it however they want. But you need to import the Graph Beta modules as a starting point. But anyway, let me just connect to this other environment real quick. So let me just disconnect from that one and connect to my other. And remind myself which environment I'm connecting to. So this one is 067. Okay, so we're now connected to that tenant with the relevant permission. So what are some of the things that we need to do to make this happen? So first of all, we need a list of applications that we have in Intune, because to be able to do the application assignment via PowerShell, we need that application object ID. And if you go into Intune, you will see that that is, you can't find that, right? That is nowhere to be found in Intune. So we go into the app's details, and it doesn't give you that object ID that you need to be able to do anything with PowerShell. So you need to obtain that. So simple way of doing that, again, this command is derived from X-ray. So whenever you pull that list in Intune, this is the command that it will call, and it will do it based on a filter. And can you stop sending me Teams messages, please, Dave? It's a nerd fest. And that is that guy there at the front, by the way. So what I want to do is I want to export the... I thought it would do it when I'm sharing. Anyway, that is so embarrassing.
Teams do not disturb.
Yeah, should be a focus mode somewhere on here. Where am I? Okay, right, stop now, stop. I haven't got a lot of time. Right, so I want to export all of my applications from Intune. So simple command, but I only want to select the certain property, so display name, that all important ID, and I want to export it to a CSV file on my C drive. So this is the command to do that, so I'll run that. That's going to create the CSV. So what I will have is this CSV file here. And basically that's going to give me all the things I need. So I've got the display name, and I've got the Intune application object ID, which is what I need to be able to pass to PowerShell to be able to alter that or impact that application object. I also need some groups that I'm going to assign to as well. So what I've done ahead of time, I have created the groups in PowerShell. So I've got the hash tables here that are used to create a group. So for this one, I've created 3 groups: HR, finance, and marketing. I've also created membership rules, so dynamic rules as well. So for example, if they've got marketing or finance in their department as part of their user profile, they'll automatically drop into those groups. So again, you can create dynamic membership rules using PowerShell as well. You just need to define those in the hash tables. And essentially, yeah, you can just select these and run, and it will create those groups. I've already created them, so I'm not going to do it again. But it does call out the other thing you need. So if you do an application assignment, you need the application object ID, but you also need the group ID that you're going to assign to. So 2 ways you can collect those is either through, this is do my head in, do not disturb. Oh no, that's focus session, go away. So two ways you can do that. You can either collect those IDs if you create the group in PowerShell, or there is a report you can run to get all of the enter ID groups in your tenant. So again, same command, and I'll spit it out to a CSV file, so I've got the groups. So when I quickly run that, I then have the groups CSV that I created, and that's going to open up with all of my enter ID, AAD groups, and all of their IDs. So then suddenly I have access to the ID that I need. So I've got my apps, finance, HR, and marketing group IDs there that I can then plug into the PowerShell script to do the other part. So what we're doing, we're sort of putting the pieces together to be able to really accelerate that task of doing the application assignment. So I've got the pieces that I need, but how do I make it sort of come together? So first thing is to build the hash tables for the different group assignments. So we've probably got four or five or six different scenarios here for these applications. We've got assigned to all users. So this is the hash table for that. So let's just get that stored in a variable now. So assigned to all users. And then we've got assigned to finance only. So you can see here, this is being assigned to that finance group. That's the finance group group ID that I plugged into there. And then I've got finance and marketing and so on and so forth. So you can see all the different scenarios I will capture in the hash tables. And I will preload all of those. And I've given them various variable names. So they're all loaded now, ready to go, which also includes removing all assignments. And this comes up with challenge number 2 with application assignments in PowerShell. It's not cumulative. So if you use PowerShell to do a new application assignment, what it will do, it'll overwrite all of the assignments. It won't update that list to add it onto the end. So whenever you are doing, so there are, if you go back to that GitHub, there are folks that have built these great sort of scripts to manage that. So they'll basically read in the existing assignments first and make sure they're appended on to that new assignment. But I'm lazy and I haven't done that, but I've done it from scratch to create these different scenarios. So if I go to Excel real quick, which is my cheapskate's tool of choice, what I've built is, to save everyone time, is this little table. So I've got the application display name, that Intune application object ID. We can ignore some of these columns. But then what I've got is, I've got this sort of scenario lookup table for each and every one of these apps. Bless you. So what I've got in the back end is this app stacks table. So you may have something like this in your environment where you've got, say, core required applications, and I've just put all the display names of the apps in this column, all the apps that finance have, all the apps that HR have, all the apps that marketing have. You'll see there is some overlap between these groups as well. So some applications, some, as in real life, some departments will have the same applications. So I've tried to make it as real as possible. And so using some sort of basic Excel skills, I can use sort of VLOOKUP to basically build out these little tables to say, okay, this application is going to need to be assigned to HR and marketing in this scenario. This application is just assigned to all users only, marketing only, so on and so forth. So using some logic commands based on those application stack tables on the other tab, I can start to understand which scenario applies to each application. And then once we've got that, so this value that lands in the parameters column is essentially the hash table variable that I defined in PowerShell. So if you look at the assigned to HR and marketing one, landed right here luckily. So assigned to HR marketing variable, basically this includes the hash table for assigning this application to both the apps HR group and the apps marketing group that I defined or created in Intra. And so this will enable me to run this magic command, set mg beta device app management mobile app PowerShell command, where I provide the app ID as one parameter and then the hash table as the other parameter. And that hash table, the body parameter, is essentially what are the groups that the app is being assigned to, but not just that. What is the intent? So is it a required app? Is it available app? What are the settings for that deployment? So in terms of, if you go back into Intune and you do an application assignment, I should probably do it with this one actually. So if it's a Win32 app, for example, there are lots of sort of things that need to be considered when doing that deployment, such as so what is that in-store behavior and what is the in-store context and things like that. So therefore all of that's defined in those hash tables, restart settings, install time settings, or additional things that can be defined, as well as DO, priority, delivery optimization. All of these defined in those hash tables. So hopefully you're all still with me. Everyone's still with me? Everyone's nodding. Excellent. Fantastic. So the final piece is to really accelerate this task is to put it all together. So we've essentially we know the script that we need to run. It's the set mg beta device management mobile app. We need to say, right, okay, what is the mobile app ID? So we've got that in cell B2, which is over here, because we exported it earlier. And we also got the body parameter that we are delivering as well. So the body parameter is in everything in the params column. So as we've built this in a table in Excel, this will auto-populate all of the rows in the table. So therefore, if you add like if I go to apps 2, where I've got lots more apps in here, you'll see that it gives you basically the PowerShell script to be able to do the app assignment for all of these applications, which would typically take you lots of clicks per application. So if you say you've got 100 or 1,000 to do, it is a pain in the backside, and you don't want to be sitting there doing that one by one if it was a lift and shift. Like iteratively, probably not as bad, but as a big bang step, it's you don't really want to be doing it. So you can also build a reset as well. So I've also got a reset command, which will basically remove all group assignments as well. So if I ever want to reset back to square one, you can do that with a script. So let's just see the magic in action. So if I go into PowerShell and Intune, I will see all of my lovely apps. Let's just filter it on Windows apps. And I just assigned one, of course, didn't I? So that one's assigned. But everything else is pretty much got a no next to it. Let's just build them all out. So nothing is assigned, essentially. So let's time how long it takes to assign this many applications. Apologies, I've got some duplicates in this table. So let me just scroll down to where it resets. So 3D pinball. So all we need to do now is just select the command. So that is 59 applications. try again, 59 applications, all selected. All the hash tables are loaded because we ran those commands earlier. So we've got all the parameters, and let's just time it. So paste all those commands in, and boom, 59 applications. One failed. It's probably because it was an MSI app. It wasn't a Win32 app. That's my fail. Tick-tock. Take a drink of water while that's happening. What time have I got till? Anyone keep a track of time?
4 minutes.
Oh, fuck's sake. There you go, done. Right, so I spoke too long at the start. So if I go back into Intune now, apart from that minor blip, me trying to do assign a MSI application using a Win32 policy, you'll see that these applications have been assigned. So you can see lots of yeses down here, and if we drill in, fortunately I've got loads of duplicates in here because this is my demo tenants, but you can see that it is assigned to, this one's assigned to all users. Let's try and find an interesting one. And all users, which is one that's not assigned to all users. Polysum. There you go, assigned to finance. So you can see, those groups get assigned, and it took me like 1 minute to do 59 apps. So imagine timesing that by 10, so on and so forth. That is accelerating that time. And we can do the same with the dependencies as well. So if we had, say, dependencies on Java and C runtime scenario as well, you can do the same sort of process as well. So build out those scenarios. In PowerShell, you can build the hash tables for dependencies as well. So in here, I've got Java and runtime, Java and C runtime only, so or no dependencies. And the same rule applies when doing the dependencies. It's a all or nothing approach. It's not cumulative. So you need to basically, whenever you assign a dependency, you need to include all of those dependencies when you update an application. But using the same technique, you can do it as well. Let me just quickly create those hash tables there. And again, we can just go into Excel and just quickly reset them first, in case I haven't done already. So that basically just clear out all of those dependencies for those applications, and then we just load up the next command, and then so this would be a various mix of dependencies based on what I've put in my table. So while that's running, let me just select an example, let's say. So I just created a dependency on C runtime for 3D pinball. I'm sure that's a real thing. Wait for it to finish. Wow, my time is up already. I had so much more to show you guys. I'll keep going until they kick me out. So yeah, you'll see 3D Pinball has now got its dependency defined. So dependencies on Java and C++ runtime. So really, again, dependencies, another pain in the backside. Okay, they'll have to just wait forever because I've got so much more content. I will have to do another session on all things exciting around Intune Copilot, unfortunately. And problem is, it'll probably be out by then, and it will just negate all of the things. So I sort of created this cool little Intune Copilot, and all doable in the Microsoft Copilot Studio. What I'll do, essentially it does simple things at the moment using Graph API to like list out the apps, Win32 apps you've got in Intune. Also, if you've got any out of compliance devices in Intune as well. Really easy to build if you've got a bit of Graph API skills, but I will have to save that for another time to show you guys that. However, if you've got your phone handy, if you want access to any of that stuff that I've shown today, including that Intune Copilot bot that I built, it should be available via that QR code. That should point to a file repository where I've got some stuff there. So the PowerShell script, the Excel file that I used, and also the zipped up bot that I exported as well. So you can import that into your demo environment and have a play around and cool, and see like the Power Automate in the back end where I'm getting a authentication token from Graph API to do some Intune calls. Anyway, I'm out of time, well over time. Thank you very much for listening patiently. Thank you.